Ted Sudol. I'm here with Paul Mladjenovic, the author of Precious Metals Investing and also Stock Investing for Dummies. And also his newest project has been a guide for job seekers, which is a very timely topic in today's economic climate.
Exactly. But that's a different animal altogether. What are we talking about today, Ted?
So what I wanted to talk about today was where silver is now. I'm sure you feel a little bit vindicated because it's rising. There are some people that basically feel that gold is the place to be. There are other people that feel that silver is the place to be because it has much more upside potential for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons is that as far as gold is primarily used as a metal for jewelry, for money, and all of the gold that was produced is really around with us. Whereas
it's a store of value, definitely.
Whereas silver, besides a monetary value, has an industrial value, and it's being used up. A lot of our modern conveniences depend on using silver. So a lot of people feel that silver has a much bigger upside potential in the future. And one of the things that I'd like you to touch on briefly is there are some people that feel that there has been a stock manipulation that has artificially depressed the price of silver. Now, for a lot of people that didn't make money, this is a negative. But for people that have some money and they want to invest it, it is an opportunity. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about those points.
Well, exactly. I think, what does anybody want to do when they're investing? They want to be able to put their money into a venue that's going to have greater value in the future. Because for whatever reasons, whether it's long-term for retirement purposes or for, say, 5 years from now or whatever. And we ask ourselves, where can we put our money today when we know it's going to be worth a great deal more down the road? And in today's day and age, when there's so many troubles with paper investments like stocks and bonds, this is one of the attractions that I have to things like silver, and gold too, but I think silver to a great extent because silver literally on a daily basis gets more and more rare. And as you have more people buying in, there's greater demand for silver, both from investors and from industrial, users. And the fact that silver is becoming more and more rare. To me, and plus it's an inflationary environment and other factors as well, I think that the total dynamics make it for a perfect long-term storm for silver to be where I think it's going to be headed, to $50 and beyond. Now, you and I, Ted, we spoke about silver, and we were involved with this kind of topic going back years. You and I even were speaking about this, or having an association with silver was like under $5.
Right.
Am I correct?
Exactly.
I remember like $4 and change, whatever. Sure. And I'm sure when we talked about silver potentially going to $50 an ounce, like anybody, you get a little skeptical. How does an investment go up 10 times? But fortunately, I didn't say it was going to happen overnight, but that was going to happen over an extended period of time. And even though those entities you mentioned that were shorting or allegedly manipulating the price of silver, that's only caused conditions for price of silver to pull back, and it gave actually long-term investors a buying opportunity. So for me, now that silver is at 30, all of a sudden it doesn't seem so odd to predict $50 silver. And I don't even think it's going to end there. I think you could easily see triple-digit silver down the road. So I think for a lot of people, silver is still affordable. It's still in a long-term bull market, and it makes sense as a proper diversification in addition to everything else. Beside their bonds and stocks and retirement accounts, etc., it's good to have something else like a valuable asset that endures and is in a long-term bull market like silver.
So, Paul, what do you see for the next 6 months, and what would be your recommendations?
Well, right now, the next 6 months, as you can tell, you're going to see more problems popping up from across the board. I think that we're not out of the woods yet with the U.S. economy, and I think a lot of people viewing this understand this. Unemployment is now into a chronic condition, will be like that for years. I think that the next 6 months are going to probably reveal in many respects for what asset classes still have long-term potential and where there might be problematic things. I mean, you're going to see more problems in Europe because, look, they mismanage stuff over there. That's their history, you know? And in America, regardless of who's running it, the government right now, we have to understand that the problems haven't disappeared overnight. You know, a lot of these things are in the pipeline. They're going to come to the fore. So you'll see more surprises and things happening in the next 6 months, problems with institutions we thought were safe years ago. It's hard to know the specifics because much of these problems are really behind closed doors right now. They won't emerge until a crisis becomes public. So I tell people, look, this is why you got to go back to the basics in many respects. You know, you and I have talked about this, investing in human need, having gold and silver on the sideline, and other things where you mitigate or avoid some of the things that are there right now in conventional investments that are real problems.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things you can't avoid talking about when you're talking about the rise of precious metals and the rise of commodities is the fall of the paper dollar. I think that the obfuscation that basically a lot of people were confused about was sort of dropping away from their eyes as they hear of things like quantitative easing,
Yeah.
which is makes voodoo economics look like you know, classroom study.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, see, this is the problem with currencies. People have heard about how the dollar is crashing or it's rising or it rallied last month and this kind of stuff. And the only reason currencies can rise or fall is it's in competition with other currencies. And I like the way one commentator mentioned it, that all these currencies are racing to the bottom and we don't know who's going to be there first. Maybe the euro will get there first, who knows. But the important point that all of this tells investors, savers, and speculators is that there are problems with currencies, and they're finally coming to the fore right now. They've been percolating there for years, but they're now showing their cracks, and this is where some real problems can occur. Some speculators can bet on some currencies rising or falling, but look, that's speculation. I think that people will have to do these things, those kind of things that were in vogue many years ago, such as, again, being more self-sufficient and having more of their money into things that are of real tangible value. Like I mentioned in another video, a pantry where people have stocks of food and soup, because look, these things won't evaporate overnight in terms of their value. They are wanted, they're needed, they're part of human existence. Whereas paper currencies, with things like quantitative easing and other fancy ways of saying they're producing more of this. Look, the more and more you produce of a currency, the less and less value each unit of that currency becomes. So this becomes a burning match. It becomes a problem that's going to affect people's wealth building capacities in the coming months and years.
And that basically is what quantitative easing is. It's basically printing up a lot more money that has no basis in value other than the fact that the government that's printing it says that it has value.
Yeah. And you know, the amazing thing is I heard Bernanke being interviewed the other day, and he made 2 points. I thought it was quite interesting. And maybe it's, can I mention some of these things?
Sure.
2 very brief points. Brief point number one is that they say they haven't been printing more money. My question is, where are these trillions coming from? I don't think somebody had a stash in their uncle's house, you know, a few $1 trillion. Second thing he mentioned was that they're not worried about inflation because all of their studies are showing that there's no inflation. And I think, where are they looking? You know, because they make a reference to, you and I had a conversation before about this, about the core rate of inflation, where they look at the inflation and they are not including food and energy. So I think, you know, I too would find no inflation if I look at those things that are inflating and I don't look at these things. You know, food, I mean, look, what things have you seen in terms of your day-to-day existence that have fallen drastically in price from a year ago? Are food prices lower than a year ago? Energy prices, you know, gasoline is now hovering near 3. You know, why don't they see this inflation? Because they are looking someplace else. All right, I mean, this is absurd, right?
And I believe that they're purposely looking someplace else.
Yeah.
You know, for the politicians, it makes it a much rosier picture if they can say that there's no inflation,
Yeah.
if they can subtract out certain unemployed people and say it's a low unemployment rate. So you really have to look behind the curtain. I think that especially today, that the curtain is being drawn away from a lot of aspects of government, sort of like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And you pull away the curtain, and you see there's just an old guy that's full of hot air.
Well, you know, the bottom line is if they're not seeing inflation and the bottom line is like what my Uncle Vladimir would say, you know, denial is not just you know, a river in Egypt, right? Anyhow,
Well, Paul, I really want to thank you for coming here today and having a chance to talk with you about some of these issues that I think are of vital importance today. I would urge all of our listeners and all the people that watch this video to go out and get a copy of Paul's books. They're available on Amazon. Is that the best?
Precious Metals Investing for Dummies. And don't get a chance to visit Ted Sudol's site, which is listed nearby, preciousmetals.investing.org.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us today, and make sure that you stop back. We'll have another video in a couple of days.
Thank you.
Thank you.